The funny family dinner. Have you ever had a family dinner that turned into complete chaos, where everything that could go wrong did go wrong? Well, get ready for the most hilarious family dinner story you've ever heard. This is the Johnson family, and their Saturday night dinner is about to become legendary. Subscribe now to Story-Driven English for more entertaining stories that will boost your English skills while making you laugh out loud. The Johnson family lived in a cozy two-story house in the suburbs. There were 5 of them: Dad, Robert, Mom, Linda, teenage daughter Emma, 17, son Max, 14, and little Sophie, 8. They also had a mischievous golden retriever named Buddy, who was practically another family member. Every Saturday night they had a special family dinner tradition, where they all helped prepare the meal, shared stories from their week, and enjoyed being together. This particular Saturday was going to be extra special because Grandma and Grandpa Johnson were coming over for dinner. It was also Grandma's birthday, and Mom wanted everything to be perfect. She had been planning the menu all week: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, fresh vegetables, homemade bread, and Grandma's favorite chocolate cake for dessert. What could possibly go wrong? The morning started with Mom making a detailed shopping list. "Robert," she called to her husband, who was reading the newspaper, "could you please go to the grocery store? I need everything on this list for tonight's dinner." Dad looked up from his newspaper and took the list. "Sure, honey, no problem." He glanced at the long list and raised his eyebrows. "Wow, that's a lot of items." "It's a special dinner," Mom reminded him. "And don't forget the candles for Grandma's birthday cake." Dad nodded, grabbed his car keys, and headed to the grocery store. Meanwhile, Mom started cleaning the house with the help of her 3 children, which really meant the cleaning took twice as long as it should have. Emma was vacuuming the living room when her phone buzzed with a message from her friend. "Mom, can I go to the mall with Jessica for just 1 hour? I'll be back in time to help with dinner, I promise." Mom sighed but nodded. "Okay, but be back by 3 o'clock, and take your brother with you." Max, who was half-heartedly dusting the bookshelves, perked up at the mention of the mall. "Yes, can I go to the video game store?" "Fine," Mom agreed. "But both of you need to be back by 3, understood?" Both teenagers nodded eagerly and rushed out of the house before Mom could change her mind, leaving her alone with 8-year-old Sophie and Buddy the dog. "Looks like it's just us now," Mom said to Sophie and Buddy. Sophie beamed, always happy to help her mother, while Buddy wagged his tail enthusiastically. Meanwhile, Dad was at the grocery store, pushing a cart down the aisles and checking items off the list. "Flour, sugar, eggs, what else was on the list?" he muttered to himself. He had accidentally left the list in the car but didn't want to go all the way back to get it. "I'm sure I can remember everything," he thought confidently. By the time Dad returned home, his confidence had faded. He knew he had forgotten something, but couldn't remember what it was. He carried the grocery bags into the kitchen where Mom was already starting to prepare the cake. "Did you get everything?" Mom asked, peering into the bags. Dad started unpacking the groceries. "I think so." Mom frowned as she looked through the items. "Where's the chicken?" Dad's face fell. "The chicken? Was that on the list?" "Robert, the chicken is the main dish for dinner," Mom exclaimed, trying not to raise her voice too much. Sophie was sitting at the kitchen table coloring a birthday card for Grandma, and Mom didn't want to upset her. "I'm sorry," Dad apologized. I'll go back and get it right now. Mom checked her watch. It was already 2:30 p.m. and Grandma and Grandpa were coming at 6:00 p.m. We're running out of time, she said worriedly. And where are Emma and Max? They should be back by now to help. As if on cue, her phone rang. It was Emma. Mom, please don't be mad, Emma started, which was never a good sign. We missed the bus, so we'll be a little late. How late? Mom asked, already feeling a headache coming on. Maybe an hour. We'll take the next bus, I promise. Mom took a deep breath. Okay, but come straight home. We need your help. Just as she hung up, there was a loud crash from the living room. Mom and Dad rushed in to find Buddy chasing a squirrel that had somehow gotten into the house. The squirrel was leaping from furniture to furniture, knocking over lamps and vases, while Buddy barked excitedly and followed, adding to the chaos. Buddy, no! Dad shouted, trying to catch the dog while Mom chased the squirrel with a broom, attempting to guide it back outside. Sophie was laughing so hard she could barely stand. This is the funniest thing ever, she declared between giggles. After 10 minutes of chaotic pursuit, the squirrel finally found its way out through an open window, and Buddy was put in the backyard to calm down. Mom surveyed the mess in the living room and sighed. This is not how I planned to spend the afternoon. Dad put his arm around her shoulders. Don't worry, I'll clean this up and then go get the chicken. Everything will be fine. Mom tried to smile, but she was starting to doubt that. Nevertheless, she went back to the kitchen to continue preparing the cake while Dad cleaned up the living room. Sophie helped by putting her crayons and coloring books away. Dad had just finished cleaning when he remembered something else. The candles. I forgot to buy the birthday candles too. He grabbed his keys again and headed out the door, promising to return quickly with both the chicken and the candles. Back in the kitchen, Mom was mixing the cake batter when she realized another problem. I don't think Dad bought enough eggs, she said to Sophie. We need 4 for the cake, but he only bought a half dozen, and we need some for breakfast tomorrow. She checked the refrigerator. We have 2 eggs left from before. That should be enough for the cake, but it's going to be tight. Sophie climbed onto a stool to watch her mother work. Can I help, Mommy? Of course, sweetie. You can help me stir the batter. Sophie took the wooden spoon and began stirring enthusiastically, a little too enthusiastically. Cake batter splashed over the sides of the bowl, landing on the counter, the floor, and somehow even on the ceiling. Oops, Sophie said, looking up at the glob of batter slowly dripping from the ceiling. Mom couldn't help but laugh. Well, at least we still have enough in the bowl, she said, taking the spoon from Sophie and continuing to stir more carefully. Let's get this in the oven and then we'll clean up. It was almost 4 p.m. when the twins finally returned home. They found Mom and Sophie cleaning cake batter off the kitchen ceiling, while the cake baked in the oven, filling the house with a delicious chocolate smell. What happened here? Emma asked, looking around the messy kitchen. Sophie had a little accident with the cake batter, Mom explained. Where have you two been? You said you'd be an hour late, but it's been almost 2 hours. Max looked guilty. We stopped at the arcade on the way home. Sorry, Mom. Mom was about to scold them when Dad returned, looking frazzled. The first grocery store was out of whole chickens, so I had to go to 3 different stores. But I got the candles too. Mom checked the time again. It was 4:15 p.m. Grandma and Grandpa will be here in less than 2 hours, and we haven't even started cooking the chicken. Emma, please set the table. Max, help your father prepare the vegetables. Sophie, you can finish your birthday card for Grandma. Everyone nodded and went to their assigned tasks. Mom quickly prepared the chicken and put it in the second oven. They were fortunate to have a double oven for occasions like this. The chicken needs to cook for at least an hour and a half, she told. Dad, we're cutting it close. The next hour was a flurry of activity. Emma set the table with their best dishes and cloth napkins, while Max helped Dad peel and chop vegetables. Sophie finished her colorful birthday card for Grandma, and then helped Mom make the mashed potatoes. The cake had come out perfectly and was cooling on a rack, ready to be frosted. Everything seemed to be going well until they heard a strange noise coming from the backyard. Dad went to investigate and came back looking worried. Buddy dug a hole under the fence and escaped into the neighborhood. What? Mom exclaimed. We need to find him before Grandma and Grandpa arrive. I'll go look for him, Dad offered. I'll come too, said Max, always eager to help when it came to their beloved dog. Mom nodded. Okay, but be quick. We still have so much to do. Dad and Max headed out to search for Buddy, while Mom, Emma, and Sophie continued preparing for dinner. Emma was frosting the cake, Sophie was arranging flowers in a vase for the table, and Mom was checking on the chicken. The chicken is cooking well, Mom announced with relief. And the potatoes are almost ready. Maybe we can pull this off after. Just then the doorbell rang. Mom checked the time. 5:30 p.m. That can't be Grandma and Grandpa already, she said. They're not supposed to be here for another half hour. Emma went to answer the door and came back looking confused. Mom, there's a police officer at the door. He says he has Buddy. Mom rushed to the door to find a smiling police officer holding Buddy's leash. The golden retriever was covered in mud and something that looked suspiciously like chocolate. Is this your dog, ma'am? The officer asked. Yes, that's Buddy. Thank you for bringing him back, Mom said, taking the leash. Where did you find him? The officer chuckled. At the Wilsons' house down the street. Apparently he crashed their barbecue and stole a chocolate cake off their patio table. Mom's face reddened with embarrassment. Oh no. Please tell the Wilsons we're very sorry. We'll bake them a new cake to make up for it. No harm done, ma'am. Mr. Wilson thought it was hilarious. He said the look on his wife's face when the dog ran off with their dessert was priceless. The officer tipped his hat and left. Mom brought Buddy inside and called for Sophie. Sophie, can you please give Buddy a bath in the downstairs bathroom? He's filthy, and Grandma and Grandpa will be here soon. Sophie was delighted with this task. Come on, Buddy, bath time, she said cheerfully, leading the muddy dog to the bathroom. Mom returned to the kitchen just as Emma was putting the finishing touches on the birthday cake. It looked beautiful, with chocolate frosting and "Happy Birthday, Grandma" written in elegant script. The cake looks wonderful, Emma, Mom said. Emma beamed with pride. Thanks, Mom. I used those cake decorating videos you showed me. The sound of the front door opening announced the return of Dad and Max. We couldn't find Buddy anywhere, Dad said worriedly as they entered the kitchen. He's here, Mom explained. A police officer brought him back. Sophie is giving him a bath. A police officer? Max exclaimed. What did Buddy do? Mom couldn't help but laugh as she told them about Buddy's cake-stealing adventure. Soon, they were all laughing. Their laughter was interrupted by the sound of running water and Sophie's panicked voice. "Mom, Dad, come quick!" They all rushed to the bathroom to find water overflowing from the tub, flooding the bathroom floor. Buddy, now clean but soaking wet, was shaking himself vigorously, spraying water everywhere. Sophie stood in the middle of the chaos, her clothes completely drenched. "I'm sorry," Sophie cried. "I was putting bubbles in the bath and then I heard a funny noise from the toilet, so I went to look, and I forgot the water was running." Dad quickly turned off the water while Mom grabbed towels to soak up the flood. Emma took charge of drying Buddy, and Max helped Sophie change into dry clothes. The bathroom is flooded, the chicken is still cooking, and Grandma and Grandpa will be here any minute, Mom said, feeling overwhelmed. "This is not how I imagined this evening would go." "We'll fix it," Dad assured her. "Max and I will clean up the bathroom. Emma can take Buddy outside to finish drying off, and Sophie can help. You in the kitchen. We still have time." Everyone moved quickly to their new tasks. Dad and Max mopped up the bathroom floor. Emma took Buddy to the backyard, making sure the fence hole was blocked, and Sophie helped Mom check on the chicken and other dishes. Exactly 6 p.m., the doorbell rang again. This time it was Grandma and Grandpa Johnson, right on schedule. Mom looked around frantically. The bathroom was still a mess. There were muddy paw prints in the hallway. The chicken needed a few more minutes in the oven, and Buddy was barking excitedly in the backyard. "Someone get the door," Mom called, trying to sound calm. "Tell Grandma and Grandpa we're almost ready for dinner." Dad, still holding a mop, went to welcome his parents while Mom hurried to put the finishing touches on the meal. The mashed potatoes were ready, the vegetables were steamed to perfection, and the homemade bread was warm from the oven. The chocolate cake stood proudly on the counter, waiting for dessert time. Mom took a deep breath and composed herself before going to greet her in-laws. "Happy birthday, Martha," she said, hugging Grandma Johnson. "We're so glad you could come." "Thank you, dear," Grandma Johnson replied. "Something smells wonderful." "Dinner is almost ready," Mom said. "Why don't you all go to the living room while I bring out the food? Emma, can you help me in the kitchen?" As everyone moved to the living room, Dad quickly whispered to Mom, "The bathroom is clean, but there's still some water on the floor. I put the wet floor sign from the garage in there." Mom nodded gratefully and returned to the kitchen with Emma. The chicken was finally done, golden brown and fragrant. "Perfect timing," she said with relief. Together, Mom and Emma carried the food to the dining room table, which was beautifully set with their best china, silverware, and candles. Despite all the chaos of the day, the dining room looked elegant and inviting. Everyone sat down at the table with Grandma Johnson in the place of honor. Dad stood up to carve the chicken, holding the carving knife and fork with confidence. "Martha, since it's your birthday, you get the first piece," he said to his mother. As Dad began to carve the chicken, there was a sudden loud crash from the kitchen, followed by frantic barking. Everyone jumped in surprise. "What was that?" "Grandpa?" Johnson asked. Before anyone could answer, Buddy came running into the dining room, still damp from his bath and carrying what looked like a half-eaten loaf of bread in his mouth. He circled the table excitedly, dripping water on the floor and making everyone laugh. "Buddy, drop it," Dad commanded, but the dog was too excited to listen. He ran under the table between people's legs, causing more chaos and laughter. Max finally caught Buddy and took him back outside, returning with an apologetic look. "Sorry about that. I thought I closed the back door, but I guess I didn't." "No harm done," Grandma Johnson said, smiling. "It wouldn't be a family dinner without a little excitement." Dad resumed carving the chicken, serving Grandma first as planned, then Grandpa, then the children, and finally Mom and himself. Everyone began eating, complimenting Mom on the delicious food. "This chicken is perfectly cooked, Linda," Grandma said, "and these mashed potatoes are so creamy." "Thank you," Mom replied, finally starting to relax. It was a team effort. Everyone helped. "That's what family is all about," Grandpa Johnson said, raising his glass. "Working together, even when things get a little crazy." The dinner continued pleasantly, with everyone sharing stories and laughing together. Max told Grandma and Grandpa about Buddy's escapade with the neighbor's chocolate cake, making everyone laugh again. Emma shared news about her school play, and Sophie proudly presented her handmade birthday card to Grandma. After the main course, it was time for the cake. Mom went to the kitchen to get it, with Emma following to help with the candles. They carefully placed all 70 candles on the cake. Quite a feat. Lit them, and carried the glowing cake to the dining room where everyone began singing Happy Birthday to Grandma. The look of joy on Grandma's face as she saw the beautiful cake coming toward her made all the day's chaos worth it. She closed her eyes, made a wish, and blew out all the candles with one big breath. Impressive for a 70-year-old. Everyone cheered and applauded as Mom cut the cake and served it. Sophie suddenly remembered something. "Oh no, I forgot to give Buddy his dinner," she exclaimed. "I'll feed him after we have cake," Dad assured her. "He's had enough adventures for one day." They all enjoyed the delicious chocolate cake, and Grandma declared it was the best birthday cake she'd ever had. "You've outdone yourself, Linda," she said warmly. "This whole dinner has been wonderful." Mom exchanged glances with Dad and the children, all of them trying not to laugh as they thought about the chaotic day they'd had preparing for this dinner. If only Grandma knew about the squirrel chase, the missing chicken, the cake batter on the ceiling, the bathroom flood, and all the other mishaps. After dessert, they moved to the living room for Grandma to open her presents. She received a beautiful scarf from Mom and Dad, a framed family photo from Emma, a handmade bracelet from Sophie, and a bird feeder that Max had made in his woodworking class. "These are all such thoughtful gifts," Grandma said, her eyes shining with happiness. "But the best gift is being here with all of you. Family dinners like this are what life is all about." Just then, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. "Oh dear," Mom sighed. "What now?" "I think the whole neighborhood is out," Dad said, looking out the window. "Must be a power outage." "I'll get some candles," Emma offered, using her phone's flashlight to find her way to the kitchen. Soon, the living room was lit with a warm glow from several candles. Instead of ruining the evening, the power outage actually made it more special and cozy. They all sat in the candlelight, telling stories and enjoying each other's company. Buddy, finally allowed back inside, lay contentedly at Grandma's feet, occasionally receiving gentle pets from her. "You know," Grandma said thoughtfully, "this reminds me of when Robert was a little boy. We had a power outage once during his birthday dinner, and we ended up having a candlelit picnic on the living room floor. He said it was his best birthday ever. Dad smiled at the memory. I'd forgotten about that. Maybe we should have a living room picnic now. The children loved this idea, so they all moved to sit on the floor, continuing their conversations in the warm candlelight. Sophie leaned against Grandma, listening intently as she told stories about Dad's childhood mischief. Max and Grandpa discussed the finer points of woodworking, while Emma helped Mom and Dad bring cookies and hot chocolate from the kitchen. Thankfully, they had a gas stove that still worked without electricity. The power came back on about an hour later, but no one moved to turn on the lights right away. The candlelit gathering had become so enjoyable that they decided to keep it going a little longer. Finally, around 9:30 p.m., Grandma and Grandpa prepared to leave, both saying it was one of the best birthdays ever. There were hugs all around as they said their goodbyes. After Grandma and Grandpa left, the Johnson family began cleaning up together. As they worked, they laughed about all the things that had gone wrong that day. Remember when the squirrel was jumping on the furniture and Buddy was chasing it? Max said, laughing. And when Sophie got cake batter on the ceiling, Emma added. Don't forget Buddy stealing the neighbor's cake. Dad chimed in. Or the flooded bathroom. Sophie giggled. Mom smiled as she listened to her family. You know, with all the things that went wrong today, I thought dinner would be a disaster, but it turned out to be perfect in its own way. That's because we were all together, Emma said wisely. That's what really matters. Dad put his arm around Mom's shoulders. And you were worried about everything being perfect. Sometimes the imperfect moments are the ones we remember and cherish the most. Mom nodded, realizing he was right. The day had been chaotic, stressful, and nothing like she had planned. But Grandma and Grandpa had enjoyed themselves. The food had turned out delicious despite the hurried preparation. And most importantly, they had all laughed and made memories together. Later that night, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, Mom and Dad sat together on the couch, exhausted but happy. What a day, Mom said, leaning her head on Dad's shoulder. One for the family history books, Dad agreed. Should we tell my parents about all the chaos behind the scenes? Mom laughed. Maybe on Grandma's 80th birthday. For now, let's just enjoy the fact that we pulled it off, despite everything. Dad kissed the top of her head. You know what I realized? Today, our family is at its best when things are falling apart. That's when everyone pulls together and shows what they're made of. You're right, Mom said softly. And I wouldn't have it any other way. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both thinking about the day's events and the special, imperfect, wonderful family they had created together. So, Dad said finally with a mischievous glint in his eye, what are you planning for Grandpa's birthday next month? Mom playfully swatted his arm. Don't even joke about that. I need at least a few weeks to recover from this one. They both laughed, already knowing that whatever they planned, something would inevitably go wrong, and that would be perfectly okay. Because in the Johnson family, the most memorable moments often came from the most unexpected disasters. And the best family stories were the ones where nothing went according to plan. And as for Buddy, he slept peacefully in his bed that night, dreaming about squirrels, chocolate cake, and the next exciting family dinner. Key vocabulary, repeated throughout. Cozy, warm, comfortable, and pleasant. Mischievous, playful in a naughty way. Tradition, a custom passed down through generations. Chaos, complete disorder and confusion. Frazzled, exhausted, stressed out. Flurry, busy, confused activity. Perked up, became suddenly interested or cheerful. Escapade, an exciting adventure, usually involving mischief. Overwhelmed, having too much to deal with frantically. In a hurried, panicked manner. Elegant, stylish and sophisticated. Mishap, a small accident or problem. Contentedly, in a satisfied, happy way. Cherish, to hold dear, to care for deeply. Pull off, to succeed in doing something difficult. Thank you for joining us for the funny family dinner. If you enjoyed this story and learned some new English words along the way, please don't forget to like this video. Share it with your friends who are also learning English. Leave a comment telling us about your own funny family dinner experiences, and subscribe to Story-Driven English for more entertaining stories that will help improve your English. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Until next time, happy learning.